All right. Sorry. Let's go ahead and kick it off. This is the meeting of the Container Storage Interface Community. Today is July 21, 2021. As a reminder, this meeting is public, recorded, and posted on YouTube. So we don't have too much on the agenda today. Was there anybody on a call that wanted to discuss something? Ben, do you want to go over some of the items that you had from last time?
Well, yeah, I mean, I could just mention that force detach is sort of stuck with the negative feedback is from James. I haven't had a chance to sync up with him personally. He wasn't in the last two of these meetings. I don't see him today. So not sure what to do about that. I mean, he had a pretty strong feeling that this was an entirely wrong approach. Everyone else who's reviewed it feels like, kind of sort of makes sense. There was some confusion around my proposed changes to the state diagrams that we had, and some recommendations that we maybe, instead of using ASCII art, we replace them with like a proper line drawing or vector graphics that integrates with whatever it is that we're using, the markdown. But yeah, I mean, those kinds of comments are all just about, the nitty-gritty details.
Got it.
And they're not strongly negative. But James really doesn't like the idea of putting all these complicated semantics into the SP, and he believes that at least according to his last comment a month and a half ago, that the CO could just be doing all of this work on its side, and I don't know what he means by that, and I haven't followed up.
So then, if let's say, I think last time we talked about narrowing down the scope, only handle a true shutdown case. In that case, if we don't make any changes in the CSI spec, just let CO handle it. Will that work for you? So this is just like, we know that sure it's really a shutdown case, so we don't have to worry about the network.
You mean a clean shutdown?
Yeah, clean shutdown. Like it's really.
Yeah, I mean,
I like to start somewhere. So because
we have clean shutdown covered, right? Well, we know that if you go through the normal process of node unpublished, node unstage, controller unpublished, like no, right now
get
good results.
Right now that does not work. I'm just so what I'm asking is if we so what you're talking about CSI side, I'm just thinking if, let's say, if we don't make CSI slack side changes, can we get the cap through just by narrowing the scope? So we can detect that it is a true shutdown right now, because I think signal has that graceful shutdown, so they can detect the signal. And then there is something I checked with them. There's something that they say I can rely on, so that we know that it's a real shutdown. In that case, can we just solve that simple case for now? At least this way we can make some progress on the cap side. So this way.
So I'm not familiar with this proposal, so let's go over it in a little more detail.
Yeah, we can look at that.
If the rest of the people here want to also participate, but I want to understand exactly what's being proposed. So you're saying somebody on the CO side will, in the event that like a node becomes unreachable, they'll make some determination after the fact that says, okay, the node was unreachable and now I know that it's dead. And so
yeah, so we know for sure it is a shutdown because this signal has this
right.
They detected that. So now we just go forcefully. So what do we do is I can talk briefly like what we do in that cap. Basically, there is a pod GC controller. So it's going to forcefully delete the pods that are stuck. So right now it's only just like wait, by the default, wait for 5 minutes, it will do that, right? But now we're going to add this check just to make sure that it's really a shutdown. And then also there were some changes on the detached controller side to make sure that we can actually delete the volume attachments. So there were some changes there as well. Yeah, so this is let's say if we know this is real shutdown, then we don't really make additional changes. We don't add any additional flags to the spec. Will that be
so
okay
what exactly
for
happens
you?
with the volume attachments?
I'm sorry. Oh, so I'm
exactly
saying that
happens
we will allow that once you, because right now if we don't make any changes, it's not going to delete that, right? So there are some proposed changes in the cap that we are, if this is the case, and we also have those new CSI driver option. So CSI driver has to opt in to say I support this, and if CSI driver says it supports it, then we will just go ahead and implement this change. So we'll make sure that whatever you're running, let's say if you have a stateful set running.
What exactly is the CSI driver opting into?
Just to allow the volume attachment to be deleted at this point. So allow a force detach to happen, because this is like a, because
you're saying allow controller unpublished to get called before node unpublished and node unstate. Okay, because that's the whole thing, right? There's a very clear state transition diagram in the spec that says this is how it's supposed to be, and you're saying basically will allow you to opt out of following the state diagram,
right?
And hope that nothing bad happens as a result of that.
Right. Yeah. So that's of course something that we need to, of course, need to do a lot of testing, right? So this is something that I have done POC with, because if we don't make that change, even if we just go really shut down node, the pods will be stuck because the volume attachments are still there, they're not deleted. So with this change, at least I think with this one case, we can at least help the pods move to the nodes that are still running.
Yeah. So if
can we I just trying to make some progress.
That the node is dead, and we say, okay, we're just gonna skip over node unpublished and node unstage and presume that they've basically effectively happened because we know the node rebooted, and that should have that effect. Then yeah, you could say it's safe to call controller unpublished, it's safe to delete the volume attachment, it's safe to mark to unmark the volumes as in use on that node, and then of course Kubernetes will go off and do its thing and be happy. So yeah, I guess that doesn't that doesn't worry me. If we can have a reliable signal from someone saying the node has definitely been rebooted or is definitely dead.
Yeah, so that I actually checked with Signode. They say that you can actually rely, because initially I thought those are internal information. So they tell me that I can actually rely on the status. I'm checking code. I still have some doubts on that, but I think at least they told me. They say that there is something that I can actually use from our controller, right? Like a GC controller.
Do you know how they know that the node
yes,
is really dead?
there is a they have this graceful node shutdown, right? So there is a well, I don't think I can say exactly what that is. I think there's some inhibitor or something. So they have a way to detect that it's really shut down. I can't explain to you exactly what that is.
Does this cover the scenario where you shut down the node, but then you turn the node back on?
Yeah, so that's something that we also need to handle, right? So that's why I'm asking them. I was thinking, do we need to add a taint? But Signode folks seems to think taint is not a good idea. So they're saying you can still just rely on this status field. So you can actually, when it comes back up, you can still check the previous status, and then don't update it to the new status until you clean up. Of course, I think this, of course, need further investigation. I still have some doubts on this.
Yeah, when the node comes back up, is it possible that it will try to start the pods again?
Yeah, so that's exactly what I was talking to them. I was in the Signode meeting, right? So I actually suspect we still need to add a taint, but this was at least yesterday they were saying they think it's not a good idea. You can't use this. So this is something that I need to do more investigation just to see if we can really rely on that. And then we can come back and you know, tell them whether this works or not work.
Well, if the volume attachments are gone, it doesn't matter if Kubelet tries to start up the pod, because the moment it gets to trying to attach the volumes, it'll be like, there's no volume attachment object. There's nothing for me to do, and it'll just
Yeah,
dead, right?
I'm mainly thinking about like a race, right? Like the node comes back up before we delete the volume attachment.
Yeah, so we still need to do that, the, you know, the reconstruction part, right? So the right now we do have that for volume unpublished. I think Michelle, you're saying that we should do that for on stage. That still need to figure out how to do that. So those, I think we still need to we still should do.
Okay, but I'm still trying to understand, what is the basic mechanism by which they determine that the node has died?
We have to read the cap. So I mean, I'm not well versed of that. Although I read that, I don't think I can explain that well. Maybe some
my understanding is the cloud provider tells them, and you detect it at the cloud provider level.
So the scheme only works if you have a cloud provider. Like if you're running on bare metal, it just doesn't work, right?
Are you sure, Michelle?
Unless you implement,
they have
unless
something.
you, okay.
I thought it's like a Linux level. They have something. They detect that there's an inhibitor or something. We can actually,
that's what I'm interested in. Is like, if this relies on a cloud provider, then I understand.
No, I don't think it's a cloud. I don't believe
if it doesn't rely on a cloud provider, then I want to understand what are they actually looking at, so that you can avoid false positives.
There is some signal there, some inhibitor or something. I mean, I could be saying the wrong terms. They are checking something there, but I can't explain this well. So
okay, I mean, so I mean, at a high level, I think it seems like a reasonable approach.
Okay.
If you can reliably determine that the node has gone.
Okay, yes, they call it inhibitor logs. You know, I don't really understand what this is, but this term.
But I mean, if you're willing to trust whatever it is that they've done.
LogMD provides the ability for, okay, so they're saying there is ability to delay shutdown. So they have this inhibitor logs. They use this log. So whenever they detect it's going to shutting down, they are locking it or something. And I think you can, okay, so this is the cap. Read the cap, because I don't think I can explain this one well.
I'm interested in knowing what they've done, but like at a high level, if you trust what they've done, and then we can do our thing of just calling controller unpublished, deleting the volume attachment, as you know, if you make sure there's no races, whatever, and then go on with life, and then you're good. And that covers the case when, like, there's been a power outage suddenly, and like the node rebooted, and then it came back, and you're like, oh yeah, it died. I know that it died, or the kernel panicked and the machine rebooted, or it locked up in some automatic system. Like a watchdog noticed that it locked up and it rebooted. Like all of those cases you can cover that way, and that's fine. But like the case where it's just like someone tripped over the network cable, or the network switch rebooted, or for whatever reason, the node was running fine, but like you just couldn't talk to it for a while.
It's like the partition case, right? So that's not covered, right?
Right. So if the node is just unready, but it hasn't rebooted, we still don't have an answer.
Yeah, because I think initially the cap, I believe Yassine, when he wrote the cap, he's actually relying on the cloud provider to know that it is safe to force detach. But even I checking inside, I mean, internally, even from our side, I don't even know what API we can use.
Well, I wouldn't want to call it force detach under those circumstances, because there's nothing to detach, right? The client has basically lost its connection. And so
yeah, but it's just like the way the way the cap proposed, right? It's called safe detach. Basically, no one is really using it. You are fine. You can just blow everything away. So that's what he meant. But you
still have to call controller unpublished volume, right?
Yeah, that is true. Those things you need to do. I'm just saying that initially he's not really relying on Signode to tell us it's a shutdown now, because he's trying to handle the node partition, network partition case, right? So it's kind of relying on the cloud provider, but I don't even know like cloud provider can reliably tell us that. So, right, because I know that I think both Jing and Michelle, when you review the CAP, you actually have that question, how does the driver know it is safe to do so? That's the thing, right? Even if some driver know, maybe only a very small percentage of driver can determine that. Like even from outside, I don't even know how to determine that. So yeah, so I think maybe we narrow down just
So
to get this one case solved first.
This whole proposal feels like a way to make some progress in the short term, but like none of it suggests that the CSI spec changes that I've proposed are not the right thing to do, because they're still needed to address the other case, right? Like if
yeah, we can still, I think we can continue talk to James about that. But I just, you know, I feel right now we are blocked. So at least because I know this is the real shutdown case, I know that I can reproduce that all the time. That is still a problem we need to solve. So,
but you can also reproduce the, you know, the orphaned node or the out of quorum node case very easily by just, you know, blocking the network access between the.
Yeah, but that one the problem is we don't know how to safely get out of that right now, right? Because we can't.
No, the way to safely get out of it is to do all of the things that my proposal suggests, which is to be able to
but
go
I'm
to the
saying
storage
that right now we
controller.
can't find James to get support on that idea.
So I think we should probably send him an email and see if we can set up like a one-off meeting just to talk through things. Does that sound okay to folks, or?
I mean,
yeah, sure, but I think
we
like
we could make progress that way. But like I said, I've been this hasn't been my top priority because I've been facing other deadlines, and so I haven't reached out to him. And if someone wants to drive it, I'm happy to, you know, show up and make the argument. I don't see
but
another
even
way.
then, even in this case, even I think Hamar is not immediate. Even Hamar does not agree with this one, right? Because he said, I think both him and James said I think AWS document clearly said you have to reboot. So that was actually another reason I want to actually solve this case first, that we know that it's already rebooted. Well, because I don't want our CAP to say, oh, I'm going to help you do a reboot. I don't think that's going to happen.
So there's two basic things that need to happen in the like setting aside the reboot case. If the node becomes non-ready and I have very stringent like high availability requirements for my app, like I'm not willing to sit around and wait for the node to come back in or to go, you know, maybe my response is I just go force reboot it. If it becomes unreachable for 30 seconds, I just say, if I can't talk to you for 30 seconds, I'm rebooting you. That might be like the answer, but absent something like that, you basically have to cut off the storage and bring the pod up somewhere else and then deal with cleaning up the node. So the two halves are, you need a way to cut off the storage. I'm not sure if AWS can do that, but it sounds like the cleanup part is the part they're more worried about, which is after you've been cut off. Yeah, so
he's talking about the Bellmetal case, I think. Bellmetal case, he said you absolutely have to reboot. So I think both James and Herman saying you absolutely have to reboot. So that was actually one big reason why I thought, okay, why don't we just solve the problem? Well, we know that it's already rebooted first. So we need to solve this anyway. I mean, it's not, I mean, it's not, how to say, does not block you from making progress on the CSS spec side, right? So it's, I think this can go in parallel actually.
Sure. I mean, we can do that in parallel.
Because in the initial CAP actually does not really even have. I mean, the CAP that Yasin put together does not even check anything. Just really depends on the CSS driver side to determine whether it's safe or not. So basically, he says, okay, if CSS driver think it's not safe, then it can just not allow the volume detach to succeed.
Well, you would just not assert these capabilities, and then and then whatever node on the Kubernetes side would just not do it if you didn't have the capability, and those volumes would remain stuck. And there's nothing wrong with that. I am confused about like why we would be interested in bare metal, because if you have disks that are on the bare metal, moving the pod to another node doesn't help you anyways, right? Because the disk is still on the node that you can't talk to. Like that confuses me.
Well, I think both James and Homon says the AWS says you have to reboot. So that's that's what I heard from them.
Right, but they can just not implement the capability and then we go on with life. Like I'm confused why we would modify the design because somebody can't implement it. Like that seems like a deficiency in AWS's design, not our problem. But I'm curious to know what
that's something that we
underlies
have to support, right? So if we know that, in that case, if relay or reboot is required, then we have to figure out what to do with it.
Oh, well, okay, I see what you're saying. You're saying let's implement both, so that if they can't implement this scheme, they can always just force a reboot and get out of jail that way. That's what you're proposing, and that makes sense. Like,
so ideally, of course, we want to support both, right? But right now, I think what I'm proposing is from the CAP side, let's just go with the smaller scope first. Get that path, at least we get that problem solved first.
I'm curious if anyone knows if this is a standard practice anywhere to like, when Kubernetes marks a node as not ready, because it fails to check in or it loses its lease. I think that's how the node readiness controller detects when a node is not ready. Does anyone automatically reboot the node in response to that? Is that a standard practice anywhere that anyone knows about?
So I know there was I think Hua Min a long time ago, he actually had some repo that is actually doing this type of thing, just to kind of reboot the node. But for that one, you actually really depend on what type of environment you are in, right? And because reboot is also different, it's not you have like one approach to reboot.
Yeah, you need like a cloud
provider. Very complicated. Yeah. So he actually we can even have that if that's really required. But I think that should be like a totally different repo. I don't even know that we should maintain something like that. Like where is the reboot case?
The thing I like about an approach like that is it will definitely work. But like, I wonder if anyone considers it too disruptive.
Yeah, that's exactly what I don't want to add that as part of the CAP. I mean, I think this is just too much.
Yeah.
But if someone like some admin knows it's the right way to do, then they can use that. So.
In this proposal, who does the reboot, or when does the reboot happen? Like for the AWS case, like is it something we would want to be automated?
It's basically he has this controller who kind of you basically have to put in the what kind of command you need. For different cloud provider, the commands are different. So there's some example, there's some demo there. You just put that, and then when this happens, it can just go ahead and do the reboot. So.
I think on the GKE side, we have a node problem detector that sits, an agent sitting on the nodes, and when it detects something is really gone wrong, it will reboot the nodes.
Is it automatic?
It's automatic, but it's not remote, so it's not like something that's sitting outside on another machine that's trying to detect something wrong with that machine. It's local to the machine, and so the reboot is triggered locally.
Is that part of the SIG-Node project? Because SIG-Node has something called a problem detector.
Right.
Part
I think
of that,
that's
right?
the same thing. Yes.
Okay.
Right, but the issue with that is that if the kernel locks up for whatever reason, like it's not going to be able to do its job, right? So
exactly.
That's when you want something outside the node to say, hey, I haven't heard from node 3 in the last 30 seconds, so I'm going to go power cycle.
I think they have something along the lines of if there is something that's hung in the kernel for a certain amount of time, it'll force a reboot. But yes, in general, that problem can probably still exist.
You're talking about like a watchdog.
Yeah,
hardware
exactly.
level watchdog. Those are good to have.
So those are already the node problem detector. That's already part of node. Maybe just each cloud provider will have to
Enable it.
include that. Yeah.
Right.
You maybe need to add something specific to your system. But does that, this type of reboot, does that have any negative impact on the workloads? Because I think that's one problem that James was saying, oh, how can I opt out of this if
I mean,
just
it
don't want to be?
does. So if you have like a application that's hung for a very long time for a legitimate reason, you could potentially end up with node problem detector forcing a reboot on the machine.
Mhm.
So there are potential drawbacks.
Do any of these schemes rely on the node coming back up after the reboot to know that it's rebooted? Like, what if it goes down and stays down? Can you reliably determine that that has happened?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't believe so. I think at that point, the rest of the code that says, oh, this node hasn't reported in for a long time kicks in.
Right, but like I'm asking about the non-graceful node shutdown KEP and its mechanism for determining the node has rebooted. If I trip over the power cord and I don't notice that, and the node just has no power and it's permanently in that state now, will anything be able to figure that out? Or will that just be considered an unreachable case where the workloads on that node will be stranded forever? Because I can't reboot it because it's already shut down and it's not coming back up.
Got it.
You know, there's similar cases with various types of hardware failures or hypervisor failures where the thing that's supposed to be running the node just can't anymore because it's caught on fire or it's underwater or got hit by a meteor.
Yeah,
All
I don't
kinds
think
of.
that covers everything, right? So that's why it's called a graceful node shutdown. Maybe the other cases are non-graceful, which we are supposed to handle, but we still
Right,
have
but
challenges.
if it's shut down and come back, then like we're not handling the shutdown and not come back class of failures, and like users worry about this stuff, right? Like they want to know that no matter what happened, like their workload will be running again. I'm all in favor of an incremental progress approach, but I still feel like at the end of the day, if you want a level of assurance that like no matter what happens, as long as there is a healthy node left, we will get your app running on that node. You at some point just have to do the hard work of fencing at the storage layer and forcing the detach and bringing the workload over.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. So it seems like, yeah, there are multiple kind of approaches here in order to get, like Ben said, a complete assurance that we're going to do the right thing. We're going to have to tackle all of these cases. But for now, I think we can handle them in parallel. So I think Xing, feel free to continue to drive on the KEP that you've been looking at, and you can include Ben and the rest of us in those discussions as well. And in the meantime, Ben, whenever you get a chance to pick this back up, feel free to ping James and maybe set up a one-off. I don't think it's super urgent, so it's not a problem if you can't pick it up for a while, but whenever you get a chance.
Okay, yeah, I want to do that.
But good discussion. Anything else on this topic?
Yeah, so I just want to say that, what I was trying to move forward with the CAP does not really, is not in conflict with what Ben is trying to do.
Yep.
Right? So a lot of changes proposed there will still be needed anyway. So,
Okay, I think we're on the same page here then. Any other discussion on force detach? Okay, I think the other item we had from last time was ID mapping and mount, which is a new Linux feature in 5.12 kernel. And this was just a heads up from Ben. I don't think there's any other follow-up here that we need to do.
Yeah, I was trying to get people excited about potentially volunteering to look into this, and one woman reached out to me to get more information, but she didn't actually want to volunteer to do it, and I haven't heard from anyone else.
Got it.
I thought last time Jonathan said he's interested, right? In the 6 storage meeting when you brought this up, he said he wants to take a look and he's going to talk to Command about it.
Okay, yeah, he hasn't reached out to me directly. There was a woman from Microsoft who did. I'm blanking on her name at the moment, but she ultimately said no. You know, it seems too big of scope for her. Because the basic problem is like you need to be down in the kernel and understand the CRI and potentially be modifying the CRI to make a scheme like that really do what you want. I don't know. I just haven't done the investigation of can it be done entirely on Kubernetes side? Do we have to change the CRI? If we do have to change the CRI, how big of a deal is that? I don't know.
Yeah, Johnson's name is in the 6 storage meeting notes, so you can check with him, see if he has done anything.
Which Jonathan was this?
What is it? His last name. He sometimes joins this meeting as well.
Got it.
He works with Hamant at Red Hat.
Okay. Okay. Well, if anybody on the call is interested, this is an exciting new area to explore. If you're interested in going all the way down to kernel level and trying to figure out how that interacts with Kubernetes and potentially CRI, this is an exciting project to investigate. If you're interested, please reach out to Ben.
Yeah.
All right, I think those were the only items we had on the agenda. Just recaps from last time. Does anyone else have any other items to bring up?
So, I just thought of something.
Sure.
So, sorry to do this at the last minute.
No worries.
We were looking at Hemant was talking about recovery from resize failure and using the controller get volume new CSI call to do this. And we realized that there was this weird interaction where, you know, we made a change a while ago so that when you call list volumes, it returns a list of attached nodes for each volume, but it's optional. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
But the way that the docs for controller get volume were written is that if you implement the get volume capability and you implement the publish unpublished capability, then you must return the list of published volumes from get volume or controller get volume. And it just so happens that like we want to implement both those capabilities, but we can't do that thing. So we are blocked from. We basically can't implement controller get capability at all because of the way that it's written. Because the verbiage is slightly different for get versus list, whether regarding whether you have to return the list of attached nodes. So I don't know. It was just I was talking to him about it a month or so back, and he admitted that yeah, it's probably we shouldn't have written it that way. I guess I don't know if it's too late to fix now to have a flavor of controller get volume that doesn't return the list of published nodes, even when the plugin itself supports controller publish unpublish.
Yeah, I think that's something worth pursuing. If it's, would this be like an edge case that folks would hit, or?
Like we hit it, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we cannot implement the volume health feature of CSI, and we cannot implement recovery from resize because we can't implement controller get volume because we can't give you a list of nodes that were published. So we'll probably fix this by improving our drivers so that we can return a list of published nodes. But like that's a lot of new extra work that's totally unrelated, and it feels like it was not the intent of the CSI spec change. That's what I'm getting at is that, you know, we don't want to force people to implement features they're not interested in just to get other features that they are interested in. And so there's this weird confluence around the published nodes, the volume health, and the recovery from resize, where they're all they all depend on the same function call. I don't know.
Yeah, that's
Again,
worth following up on. Is there a bug open on this somewhere capturing this?
Well, it's not a bug. It's just a design that kind of sucks for us.
I mean, that's fair, but just if we can track it in a GitHub issue, we can follow up on it. I think it's worth
Yeah.
trying to like understand if there are changes we can make to the wording that
Yeah.
would be backwards compatible and
Well, that's the thing is at this point, the way it's been written, COs can depend on the verbiage that is in controller get volume, and there's no way to back out of that without breaking that backwards compatibility with the statement we already made.
Got it.
So like, unless you want to like layer in a new capability or something to try to override what we already said, there's really there's no escape route for us other than to just go implement this feature that we should have implemented a long time ago but didn't. So that's
any of the features involved here alpha, so that we can make breaking changes, or are they all past that?
The controller get volume API itself, it was the one that would matter. Let me see if I can. Where would it be marked?
In the message, they should have alpha next to the.
Yeah,
I think controller get volume is probably not.
Oh, it would be in the proto buff. I'm in the wrong repo.
It looks like controller get volume is a alpha method.
Oh.
So we may have the ability to modify it.
Okay, we can just say, oh, we were just kidding about that requirement to return the published node IDs.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, well, yeah, in that case, I will write up an issue.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thanks for surfacing that.
Okay. Who owns this new API in the sense of who touched it last?
I'm trying to remember.
It was David.
Oh, I probably touched it for the boarding house part.
Yeah, yeah, it's related to volume health and.
Oh, what is the problem? Sorry, I
and
didn't follow that. Oh, you're saying you can't have. I think there are different capabilities, right? Is the problem? Boarding house has its own capability.
In the controller get volume response, there's a field called publish node IDs, and it says it's optional, but if you have the publish unpublished volume capability, it's not optional.
Oh, that's Dave. I think that's Dave added that the publish node. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, and it's a good thing to have because it's used by the external attacher to reconcile attachments, which is actually a very desirable behavior. It's just that our driver has never implemented that feature. And we're forced to now to get the other behaviors, which is a weird situation to be in. But yeah, I'll turn this into a GitHub issue and I'll post it to the meeting agenda.
I thought it was also a special capability for that, but I thought it was a like the publishing nodes. I thought that's also a separate capability. You're saying it's not?
Well, here maybe I can.
I thought he added.
Sure, I'll stop sharing and give you permission.
Move tab to new window. Yeah.
All right, go for it.
All right. So here's the controller get volume response. In the volume status, it says that this is the one. A list of all the node IDs that the volume is published on. It's optional. This field must be specified if the published unpublished volume controller capability is supported. And then it goes on to say that it may include nodes that's not actually published here. So this verbiage is different than for the list volumes, because for list volumes, it's published volume IDs is always optional. It's never must be specified. And so we can get away with leaving it
Uh,
blank, even though we support this capability. But
This might be added by me when I add the control at get volume, because I think initially it was only list volumes. When we added volume house, we also added the get volume, I think.
right, but controller
Maybe, yeah,
list
so
list.
Can we look at the wording for the list volumes?
Yeah, that's where I was going to go. The list
not-
volumes
this probably
response.
is copied from that.
This field is optional. It doesn't say that it's required. It just says if the field is not specified and the SP does not have the list volumes capability, the CO must not interpret this field. So it's sort of inverted how it's treated for list volumes versus get volumes. And that's how we got into trouble.
So this is, okay, so this is list one. Okay, can we go to, what is the other one say? I'm sorry. Oh, the other one, did it also say this is list?
The other one
of
said
published notes?
if you have published, unpublished, it must be populated, which is contrary to what the rule is here. And
Oh, I think that's,
we
yeah, I
don't have
think
this
that's wrong.
information. So
I think that's wrong. So
okay,
okay,
well then maybe
fix
we can
that.
just fix it. I mean, it would
Yeah.
be nice if SPs, or sorry, if COs could depend on this being filled in under certain circumstances so they can have better behavior. Maybe there's another explicit capability that says, you know, we're going to return this information. But
In the return, is there a way to detect the difference between not populated and empty?
I'm afraid not. It's just a list of strings that can be zero length. I think optional in gRPC means like the list can be zero length, right?
Yeah, because I know in Kubernetes, we explicitly detect the difference between nil versus empty.
Oh,
And that lets us be able to, you know, have different behaviors. And we can say if it's nil, we could assume the driver just didn't implement it, versus if it's empty, the driver is explicitly implementing it and saying that there's nothing.
right.
But I don't know if we can do the same thing in gRPC.
I'm trying to look at the Golang bindings for this same thing. Status field. It's implemented as a string slice. The published node ID uses a string slice in the struct. And I don't think Golang distinguishes between a zero length slice and a nil slice. Does it? Maybe it does, but like if you call length on a slice that's nil, you get zero. You don't get a dereference error or anything. But yeah, if you explicitly have a zero length slice and you compare it to nil, I don't know if you can get a different value. Either way, the CSI spec wording could be made less difficult to deal with. So I'll file that issue.
Is Haman planning to use get volume or list volumes?
He wanted to use get volume
Okay,
to get the size of the volume.
It's because I think get volume is pretty new, so probably
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
The driver has implemented that yet.
And
Right,
it's
but
still
like-
technically alpha, right? So we
Yeah,
can
it's
change it.
alpha. Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, well that makes my life a little easier if we can get the wording adjusted to make it more optional than it currently is, or wrap it in another capability to express
Yeah.
whether
Should this be a
CO can depend on it or not.
It probably should be a separate capability.
All right, if we don't care
Shouldn't
about
it?
like capabilities
Let's just think
explosions,
about that.
that's a pretty easy answer.
Should that be separate? This is okay. So this is a. Okay, so you basically you need to have, let's for example here you need to have both the list volumes is a capability by itself, right? Plus this list volumes published nodes in order to get this. So over there, we should also
Well,
have
maybe we could reuse this
this.
capability, the list volume published nodes, for
Yeah, just the word. Yeah, I think just the
Just
word
refer to this
list
capability
is
instead of
really
the other
weird.
capability.
I think we're doing the same that for the volume house. You see the volume condition is the same in both places. However, because the previous one is already called list, so list is a little weird to be used in get volume. That's why I think.
Okay.
Do we?
Well, is there anyone who implements
Does it make sense?
get but not list? Can you not support list but do
Yeah,
support
list
get?
volume is optional. List volumes is optional. So people probably, people only implemented list volumes because, get volume is new, right? So there are definitely people who only implemented one, not the other.
All right. Well, I'll file an issue and we can see if we can.
Yeah,
change
if
the
we can
wording.
use this will be best, but then the problem is that this is called list volumes, published notes.
Yeah, well, there's no
So
way to rename
maybe-
an existing
Maybe
capability. Right?
this one has been there for a long time, but I don't think we can rename this one. Can we? This is it's probably will be harder if we rename something that is already GA. It will be easier if we just add a new one, which I think is probably is okay.
No, the
So-
easier thing is just to use it and apologize for the awkward name. Right?
It's probably very confusing. That's fine too, but just in the
I mean,
documentation.
does anyone have a problem with that?
That's okay. That's okay too. I'm fine with that, but just in the documentation, we need to clearly say, okay, this is yeah, it's probably okay. I'm okay with it.
Okay. Well, that would be cool. Yeah, it's just another small thing that I bumped up against when I was trying to implement get volume, and I noticed that the wording was totally different. So I had to do something special in my driver. Okay. So I will, I guess, paste after I have an issue created, I'll paste it into the meeting agenda for posterity. You can follow up on it later.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. Any other items for discussion today? All right, one last thing I wanted to mention was I think we are starting to accumulate a lot of alpha functionality in the spec now. It is good that we actually have alpha, beta, GA, so we can find issues like this and fix them. But we should think about which features are stable enough to move to beta and move to GA.
Wait, I didn't know we had beta too. I thought it was just alpha and GA.
I forget.
Yeah, I remember discussing alpha. I don't remember ever discussing beta. I thought we were going to go
see.
straight from alpha to GA.
Okay, that may well be the case. I need to go back and double check. But I just want to make sure that we're moving features along as well. I don't want to get stuck forever forever alpha. So just something to think about as folks head into the kind of next release. If there's any features that we should be moving along, let us know. That's all I had on that. Anything else? All right, then we'll end a little bit early today. Take care, folks.
Thanks, Sud.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.